Well, it's definitely been an interesting week around the Mosier house. We have gone through some changes. And many of you know what it's like to go through changes in life, but we gave in and the kids, they finally won. And so we introduced the kids to this shocking surprise by giving them a gift that they couldn't use. Take a look at this picture. So we decided our kids were too rebellious. We were going to stick them in a kennel. Just kidding. We're getting a dog, right? So the kids were pretty excited about that whole process because we always thought, we grew up on farms, my wife and I both, and so we had animals and they just went crazy. I actually, a couple of hobby farms while I was in junior high and high school, all sorts of little animals running around. But we just said, we're inside, it's going to cost too much time, too much money, and there's going to be way too much poop. And so we're like, let's not, we're already managing 3 kids. So that's plenty. And so we gave in. We decided that the kids, they've been pestering us long enough, and they really wanted this, and we've been trying to talk them out of it. Like, it's going to be lots of extra time going for walks. Yeah, we know. Lots of extra, stuff to pick up. Yeah, we know. And so this is the picture. The boys and I, Thursday night, I picked them up right after school, and we went to pick up our new addition. And so this is outside of a Walmart in Vermilion, South Dakota. And this next picture is of Iris. Yeah, she's cute till she poops. It's kind of like a baby, right? We do love having her, and we've been training her and trying. It's just been a couple days. But we knew something going in, and this is a biblical principle. I don't want you to think it's not, even if it applies to puppies and kids. Like, count your cost before you go in. Don't just go in and get surprised like, whoa, that costs so much money. No, we get it. So, before we ever picked up the dog, we went and picked up a kennel, for the house. We picked up a bed and some food and dishes for the food and toys and treats and a brush and a collar and a leash. And that doesn't even cover the adoption fee and the vet fee and the amount of time that's going to go in. And so we counted our costs and we decided, this is going to be worth it. And I want to tell you that today we're going to talk about counting your cost. And we're also going to talk about investing into something bigger. And so you and I, we have an opportunity to be a part of God's church right here at Connection. That doesn't mean that the church exists solely here at Connection. This is just one extension. This is one congregation of the Church of God meeting throughout the world. And that's an exciting place to be. But we're talking about this theme, it takes a village. So last week we talked about how all the ministries in the church really do take a lot of people rolling up their sleeves and just getting to work. So regardless of whether that's in the sound booth or that's up here on stage or that's in the kids ministry area, picking up chairs, being out in the community with outreach events, it takes a lot of people really to make things happen. But one of the other things that it takes to make happen whenever you get a group of people like this together, it takes some cashola. Okay? And so we knew that going into a dog, it's going to take some money because you know what? We're not stupid. I mean, sometimes. But in this instance, we knew going in, it's going to take some money. We knew when we bought a house, it's going to take some money. Right? There's more to pay for than just the mortgage payment. So there's some extra fees associated with that. Now, when I was a kid and I was turning 16 and I wanted my own car, I did not understand that it takes money to make the world go round. Or even the wheels go round. Right? It takes that gas to make the wheels go round. And when the car's not working, it takes repair money to make the wheels go round. And so all of these resources necessary. And so David, well, he isn't able to build the temple of God, the permanent house of God. The Ark of the Covenant with its 10 commandments inside has been placed inside of a portable church called the tabernacle. It's a tent. And it's been carried around with the Israelites. And now David is wanting to set up this permanent home for God, and he wants it to be amazing. But he can't do it. His role was to be the conqueror, to go out and defeat the enemies that were around. And he did a really good job of that. So good that actually when his son Solomon took over, he had a time of peace in the land, and he, Solomon, could focus on the building of this temple. But David wanted to make sure that he was ready to go, that he counted his costs, that he was able to financially understand what it was all about. So let's go to 1 Chronicles chapter 22, page 225 in the Bibles we provide, and see what we can learn from David through this situation. Chapter 22, starting in verse 2. David commanded to gather together the resident aliens who were in the land of Israel. That meant the people who weren't native to Israel, but they were living there. And he set stone cutters to prepare dressed stones for the building of the house of God. So he took these people and he had them make stones that were shaped perfectly for the construction of the temple. And then David also provided great quantities of iron for things like nails and the doors of the gates and for clamps. Why? Because he had no local hardware store. They couldn't just buzz down and say, hey, grab me a big box of number 16 nails. We got some building to do. Like, that just didn't happen. So they had to get the iron. They had to shape the nails. They had to shape the different connecting pieces and even the doors. And as well as the bronze in quantities beyond weighing and cedar timbers without number. David said to Solomon, my son is young and he's inexperienced. And the house that is to be built for the Lord must be exceedingly magnificent. So as he's talking to the people, he wants them to know that Solomon's going to take over, but he's kind of a newbie. Okay, he's fresh meat. But we're going to do what we can to prepare this for him as best as possible. And this temple, this house for God, you might want to underline those words, exceedingly magnificent. That doesn't mean like average. Okay? That means, whoa! Like this place is going to be the shining star and everybody is going to know that this exists. And it's going to be for fame and glory throughout the lands. This October, you may know that I'm taking a trip to India. And in India, there is this building that people travel for miles around to go see. It's called the Taj Mahal. Right? People want to get in and they want to see how big and how magnificent and how amazing the architecture and how detailed the craftsmanship of this amazing work of man. This is kind of what David was going for, only I think it was much, much better. And so he wants everybody else around to know not just how great this building is, but how great God is. He says, I will therefore make preparations for it. So David provided materials in great quantity before his death. David knew that if this was going to happen, he needed to start saving. Some of you know that. If you're going to get that dream car or even something close to the dream car, like it runs, then you need to start saving for it. And some of you, if you're going to get that house, you've got to save for it. Some of you, if you want to go to college, you save for it or pay for it a lot later. You're going to get it one way or another. Loans or savings. And so he said, you know what, this is going to be so awesome. We're going to save. We're going to build up to this temple. And when Solomon takes over, he's going to be set up in pretty good shape. Most of us would love to have taken over in those kind of situations. A couple verses later, verse 14 of 22. With great pains I have provided for the house of the Lord. Listen to what David gave. He gave 100,000 talents of gold. Now, that may not mean a whole lot to you, but let me put it in a quantity type of thing. Anybody know how many pounds are in a ton? 2,000 pounds in a ton. Okay, just to put this in a scope that maybe you and I can relate to, 4,000 tons of gold. Basically what that means is there's a lot. And of silver, 40,000 tons. Matter of fact, when it gets down to bronze and iron and these other things, they're like, we didn't even bother to count that. It was just a lot. some of the research that I did leading up to this, some scholars said as much as $40 to $60 billion worth of gold. I was talking to somebody after first service, and they said, well, it just kind of depends on how you define a talent, because there were different talents in the area. And they said, based upon their research, it could have been as much as $129 billion worth of gold. That's some cash, right? He was well stocked. And then we read on here, it says of silver and of bronze, and then he gave iron beyond weighing, for there was much of it, timbers and stones too, that he's provided. And then that last little sentence, to these you must add. So in this portion of text, he's talking specifically to Solomon. Okay, Solomon, I've taken the national treasury, all the stuff that we've accumulated over time, the stuff that we took out of Egypt, the stuff that we've gained from conquering over these other civilizations, that stuff is there for your disposal, and there's a lot of it. But I want you to do even better. I want you, Solomon, to have a little skin in the game. I want you to own this mission. I want you to own this accomplishment of building the temple, the house of God. And so you must add to it. David gave, but he expected his son Solomon to do so also. Skipping on to chapter 29. In chapter 29, page 229, David the king said to all the assembly, Solomon my son, whom alone God has chosen, is young and inexperienced. Now, he wasn't just trying to beat this in so Solomon knew that he was young and inexperienced. Like that wasn't the kind of dad he was. He was talking to a different audience now. Now he's talking to all of Israel. I'm not going to be your king, but my son is. And my son, he's going to be young and inexperienced, and there's going to be a great work for him to do. For the palace will not be for man, but for the Lord God. Remember that exceedingly amazing, awesome, spectacular temple that he was going to build? There was a great purpose for this. It's for God and not for man. I believe in this that David realized what he was going to do was great. He had huge buy-in. We read on. So I have provided for the house of my God so far as I was able. The gold for the gold things, the silver for the silver things, the bronze for the bronze things, the iron for the iron things, the wood for the wood things, and great quantities of onyx, stones for settings, antimony, colored stones, and all sorts of precious stones and marble. That's just a lot of stuff. Right? So he's not assigning any kind of quantities in this point in passage. He just wants you to know, because this is a new audience, again, I've provided a lot of stuff. All the treasure of Israel opened up. Solomon's set. He can go do this. He's already told Solomon to add to it, but now he's saying this. Moreover, in addition to all that I have provided for the holy house, I have a treasury of my own, of gold and silver. He's letting his people know that he's got skin in the game. Guys, I didn't just open up the national treasury for this to happen. Personally, I buy in to what's going on. And because of my devotion to the house of my God, I give to the house of my God 3,000 talents of gold, about 110 tons of gold. And I give 7,000 talents of refined silver. Okay, so this is a greater purity to the silver that he's providing. But again, 260 tons of silver. This is coming out of his personal account. This isn't business related. Okay, he's a king, he's loaded. We get that, right? This would be akin to you and I, we live in the United States of America, and somebody's going to open up the national treasury, and they're going to accomplish something really big and fantastic, and we're like, that's awesome, that's great, let's do that, it's not my money, we can spend it. And then you realize that eventually you're going to pay for it anyway, because it's going to come out of taxes and stuff. But your president happens to be Donald Trump. And he's going to open up his own treasury, right? And so he's now funding this thing. But what's really happening is David is saying, we've got the national treasury, but I'm bought in. And now when he brings it back to the people, there's another level of expectation. Listen to these words that end the paragraph. Who then will offer willingly, consecrating himself today for the Lord? Out of all the people of Israel, who's going to buy in of their own free will to set aside this mission for the Lord? David gave, but he expected his leaders to give too. I want you to know that at Connection, it takes so many people, financially to make it happen. And we've talked about that from the beginning. So many of you, this is redundant, but there's so many new faces that come and go that we say it a lot. And that's, we have so many people that have financially given to make things happen. We have so many people here financially that give to make it happen. But from day one, before my family and I ever moved to this town, I want you to know that we had full buy-in. That meant that we gave at least 10% of our income to the church here to make the ministry happen. At least 10%. I can tell you that knowing Josh and Amy, they're in the same boat. And they've given financially to make the ministry of the happen. So when we talk about money at Connection, it's never about padding our own accounts. Matter of fact, I can tell you for 4 years of ministry here, I've not gotten one single raise. Many of you would be disappointed if you worked at a job like that. I am not. I'm not here begging for any kind of money. Okay? It's a mission that's at stake. And there's something more to be done. And I think that when we understand that the leaders, they have skin in the game, but they're calling the lay leaders to put skin in the game. And we call the congregation to put skin in the game because there's a great mission that needs to be accomplished. And it's far beyond ourselves. So let's see what happens. Verse 6 of 29. Then the leaders of the fathers' houses made their free will offerings, as did also the leaders of the tribes, the commanders of the thousands and of hundreds, and the officers over the king's work. What I want you to understand here is that there was a trickle-down effect. We started at the top of the pyramid, and it went down, and all of these people, regardless of their rank, they bought in. Chances are they didn't buy in as much as the king. And chances are, if you were a second-tier leader, not as much as the first tier, and a third leader, not as much as the second, because, let's just face it, it's income-based. You and I, we understand that. Income-based giving. And so they gave, for the service of the house of God, 5,000 talents and 10,000 darics. A daric is like 2.5 talents. That number still doesn't mean a whole lot to you. They gave a little bit more than the king, but understand this was a lot of people working together to get to the amount that the king was giving. And they gave 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze. They could actually weigh that. And there were 100,000 talents of iron. And whoever had precious stones gave them to the treasury of the house of the Lord in the care of Jehiel the Gershonite. Verse 9 is going to blow your mind. And so I want your heart to be prepared as you hear this. Then the people rejoiced. Let me get this right. So the king said, join me in this mission. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you personally. And after they did it, they were happy about it. Yep. Pretty much. And I hope that at the end of this 30-minute message, you and I, sitting here in this same room today, can say, I just heard a 30-minute message about money. I gave, and I'm happy about it. That's where I want our hearts to be. Let's read on. Because they had given willingly, for with a whole heart they offered freely to the Lord. Guys, 3 keys right here to giving generously, and to be able to rejoice after you do so. Give willingly. We're not here trying to twist your arms. We're not here trying to make you feel guilty. That's not my job. Right? But we're here to encourage you to give willingly to a mission that is so much greater than you and I, and it allows God to brightly shine for an entire community and beyond. And 2, you give with your whole heart. That doesn't mean that you put into the offering plate, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. Like, rent's due this week, and I got a car payment coming up, and I really want that new jet ski. No, you just give willingly, and you give with all your heart, you want to do what you're doing. And the third piece is you do it for God. You do it for God. I'm going to read on in this passage because I want you to grasp something here. Verse 14. David is talking to God. But who am I? What is my people that we should be able thus to offer willingly? David doesn't even feel like he should have the capacity to give to God freely. Why? For all the things come from you. David understood the only reason that he's got all the stuff that he's got is because God first gave it to him. And of your own have we given you. You guys get that? When we give to God, we're not giving God what's ours. We're giving God back what was already His. We're trusting Him with what He has loaned us to live with. For we are strangers before you. We are sojourners, as all our fathers were. Our days on the earth are like a shadow, and there is no abiding. O Lord our God, all this abundance that we have provided for the building of your house and for your holy name comes from your own hand and is all your own. Get this? You hear what David is saying? All the stuff that we have given wasn't ours to give. It already belonged to you. Verse 17, I know, my God, that you test the heart and have pleasure in uprightness. In the uprightness of my heart, I have freely offered all these things, and now I have seen your people who are present here offering freely and joyously to you. I think that you and I, need to have this kind of heart when it comes to giving to God. When we understand rightly that everything that we have is a blessing from God and not something that we have earned, and in some way, shape, or form, we are blessing God because we're giving Him our stuff. It's quite the opposite. God is blessing us through all that we have. And He's inviting us to a greater mission. He says, will you follow me on that? So here's a little rubber meets the road kind of things. This year we've been challenging you guys to give not just to the church, but to give beyond the church. And so we've set some global ministries before you. The first one was Compassion International. We said, you have the opportunity to sponsor a child for X number of dollars each month. And some of you took us up on that. And so maybe you're writing monthly letters to a child in Africa or in Asia or Central America. And you're really owning that and you're caring for that child. Man, awesome. That's great. Step 2, we said, we're going to challenge you to help us raise $1,400 to put a well in Asia someplace. We don't know where, and we're not actually doing the labor. We're going to pay somebody locally to do it, and they're going to put this well next to a religious institution who's going to teach people about the living Word of God. It's going to give them an eternal life. And you guys stepped up in big ways.